You'll be able to give us input on how we can communicate the issue through art so the public can be offered a new perspective. Also with him, please welcome, we also have the World Health Organization, still being medical officer on malaria, vector-borne, and parasitic diseases. A big hand for Dr. Gary Locu. All right. And lastly, we have PSFI's Deputy Executive Director and Program Manager for the Movement Against Malaria. You heard from her earlier this morning. A big welcome once again for Ms. Marvi Trudeau. Google has been fighting malaria since the beginning of the collaborative efforts to talk about PSFI's approach to combating the disease. All right, so now I should turn over the floor to another special MC for this morning. Also with us today is ABS-CBN's Business News correspondent to moderate today's discussion. Please welcome the lovely Miss Michelle Mo.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. How's everybody doing? No energy. How's everybody doing? Okay. So we're just going to double check if our panel is complete or we're going to invite you.
All right, so just got a little confirmation. We have one more very special guest here, and we cannot proceed without this very special person. Sorry for omitting you, everybody. Everybody, please give a warm welcome for the Vice Governor of Palawan. A big hand for Mr. Dennis.
Thank you, sir, for joining. Okay, so the world clearly is alarmed over health issues, and today that health issue happens to be the novel coronavirus, recently named COVID-19. It's actually been dubbed public enemy number 1 by the World Health Organization. Recent check, real-time check in fact, 60,095 cases already confirmed, 1,362 deaths. Clearly, all efforts and resources from both the government and private sector now directed to finding a solution to the novel coronavirus. But hopefully, even with that keeping all of us busy, we don't forget about the other serious diseases that pose serious threats to lives, and that is malaria. At one point, it was actually called a plague. It is caused by single-cell parasites that transmit to humans through insect bites. Most of them are female, and most of the time, pregnant mosquitoes. The World Health Organization estimates that every year there are over 200 million cases of malaria all over the world. Death toll every year, 500,000. So it's a serious problem. Of the 500,000 deaths reported from malaria every year, 90% of them happen in Africa, and most of the victims are children. To put that in context, for every 2 minutes that we spend, 1 child dies of malaria. So let's talk about malaria now. I want to start with Vice Governor Dennis. Sir, the most difficult question I will ask you first. How old are you? How old, sir? Parang binababa ng volume. How old, sir?
59.
59. So in short, you've seen malaria at its peak and you've seen its decline. Because malaria to a lot of millennials, like a lot of us here, especially those from Metro Manila, it sounds a bit distant. We don't know how malaria looks like. How does malaria look like? What is the face of malaria for you who have seen it?
From my childhood memory, I was actually a patient. I remember the chills, most of all, and fever in the evening. So I suppose it's a common experience among my generation of Palawenos, native Palawenos. And we are very grateful. So I'm here on behalf of our governor, Jose Chavez Alvarez, and the regional government of Palawan. We are here basically to express our gratitude to PSFI for your work in practically eradicating malaria from Palawan. Of course, there are still a few cases now, but it's always good news to know that the millennials haven't heard of malaria. Thank you.
But sir, I want to know, back at that time when you were a patient yourself, were you a child?
I was a child then.
You were a child. What was the impression of people? Did they feel that when you get malaria, malaria, death sentence din, patay ka na.
In my case, hindi na gano'n, pero it was rather common. Almost everyone I know, at one time or another, suffered from malaria. Deaths are, not so many in my personal experience. Right? I imagine in the remoter areas, especially among the Tubo, among the indigenous peoples who live in the mountains, I suppose getting malaria meant a death sentence already.
Dr. Gowrie, I wanted to ask your expert opinion. How is malaria different from dengue? What is the incubation period? At what time of day does this specific mosquito bite you and infect you? What are the symptoms? What is the mortality rate?
Okay, let me start with dengue because in the Philippines, every year we are encountering high number of dengue cases. The worrying number for me is deaths due to dengue in this country, mainly among children 5 to 9 years old. So dengue is caused by a virus which has 4 subtypes, 1, 2, 3, 4. So from January 1st to up to date, say up to yesterday, there were around 16,000 cases with 45 deaths in this country. And I'm a little bit worried that 45 deaths is among children. And the type 3 is more prevalent. So type 3 we didn't have many years. So I'm worried because Filipinos, you don't have immunity for that. So this is not the season for dengue because we feel cold in the morning and cold weather. Actually, the usual pattern is we see the dengue cases with the rainy season. But now we have started seeing dengue cases. This is not unique to Philippines. The same thing is happening in the Western Pacific regions. For an example, in Singapore, you know very well they have a very tight, very strong dengue control program. In spite of that, they are getting cases even now. But the only difference is the death is near zero. That is it. So if you get one virus, dengue, this time, it doesn't mean you are protected against the next 3 viruses. So it means you can get it. So dengue mosquito bite during daytime, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. and 3 to 5 p.m. So that is where the problem, schooling, we are all working at that time. The contrast to dengue, the malaria is a parasite. And we have 4 human parasites and 1 zoonotic at the moment in the world. In Philippines, mainly 2 parasites are prevalent, but other 2 also we can see lesser percentage. Mosquito, the Philippines and the malaria mosquito bite night, 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. So that is exactly a problem in the southern Palawan among indigenous population. Sometimes they do night activities. They go to a common place outside to the TV or any other. So that is the problem.
And what is the mortality rate for malaria? What are the symptoms? Very similar to dengue, I imagine.
Dengue is a viral disease, so as I told you, it's joint pain, red eyes. So it's very similar. But malaria, I think our Vice Governor explained chills and rigors. But now, over the years, the symptoms has changed. So it's maybe we can harbor malaria parasite now, even we don't symptomatic. So that is the problem. So incubation period vary between parasites, but usually it's 1 to 14 days.
Ma'am Marvy, you've done work in Palawan for the last 20 years. Congratulations! 20 years for movement against malaria. Everybody, a round of applause. So in 2009, you guys got funding from the Global Fund for against AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. What do you think caught their attention? What were you doing that caught their attention to give you nearly $32 million And over the last 20 years, what has Shell Foundation concretely done to eradicate malaria in Palawan?
I think let me put it a qualified thing. I don't think it is purely a Shell project. The efforts that we do is to support the National Malaria Program of the Department of Health. And so it is still the national program of the Department of Health. Also, we did not receive the funds only in 2009. We started receiving the funds in 2006. So we started the malaria program in 1999 in Palawan. But in 2005, the WHO, together with the Global Fund officers, came to Palawan and saw how, in their words, sophisticated our program is in Palawan. Because when we started in 1999, we made sure that all of the barangays that are endemic to malaria had a microscopy center. So, not knowing the real situation on malaria was a big gray area to us. And for us to be able to actually find out how big is the problem, we wanted to make sure that all of the barangays have the capacity to diagnose and to treat malaria right away. And so when you do it that way, then you are able to figure out how big is the problem and how are we going to do it. And when you have that figure, we were able to treat it quickly. When a person who lives in the far-flung areas or the hinterlands have to go to the poblacion just to have themselves treated, then you know you have lost to treatment already. And malaria, if you're not treated right away, can be fatal. The 3 days you're not treated, it can be fatal. So when you are able to bring the diagnosis closer to the communities, then you are able to diagnose the patient and treat them quickly. And so we came from an estimate because we did not really know the numbers. The estimate then was 78,000 Palaweños were having malaria annually. And so then when we finished all of the microscopy centers in place, we found out it was still over 40,000. So 40,000 cases a year is still a lot of number in one province. And so from there, in 2005, when they arrived, there was already a 65% decrease in cases just by doing what we have done and by introducing all of the massive education that had to be done. Because people did not know that the malaria was being transmitted by a mosquito. People thought that, eating pineapple in an empty stomach would cause malaria. Or something like that. Drinking buko would cause malaria. And therefore there's a need for a massive information system. So that people understood what the malaria problem is and how it is treated and how it should be prevented.
Aside from the microscopy centers that you set up, you also distributed special kulambos.
Yes.
Tell us about these treated mosquito nets.
Okay, when the
10 million of them, right? 10 million distributed already.
yes, over 10 million distributed over these years. When we were given the first grant of the Global Fund in 2006. From 2006, the first grant was actually $14.3 million. And to this day, after the last grant, we have a cumulative grant of about $102 million. And this was done and implemented in the whole country. And so, the biggest and the principal intervention was the mosquito net. As Gauri said, the mosquitoes of malaria bite in the evening from 6 o'clock, basically until 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And so, it's okay when you're awake and you can shoot the mosquitoes and probably kill them. But when you're asleep, then they're feasting on you. And so you have to protect the person from being bitten by the mosquito so that the mosquito cannot transmit the the parasite to another person. And basically, that's the main ingredient of the success of the product.
Very curious question from a consumer side. Would off lotion help?
Yes. But how do you can use off lotion, but you have to reapply every 4 hours. So when you're asleep, you will not wake up and start reapplying, right? And you know, it was sticky. The off lotions now are much better, but you know, in 1999, start using an off lotion. It's hot, it's sticky, and you really don't want to do that.
Okay, so I want to talk to Leroy now. Congratulations on the fortress. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. He created that. So Leroy, from an outsider's perspective, like myself, I'm not into looking at the deeper meaning of art really, not an artist. But looking at your body of work, it appears like you focus on designs, at least in my case, stuff that my nightmares are made of. Goosebumps inducing, thorny, slimy looking designs. Was that the same treatment that you put or used in the fortress?
Well,
Your sci-fi looking.
yeah, my forms are inspired a lot by, I guess, fantastical forms, sci-fi themes and motifs. But I'm also particularly obsessed with materials, different materials, and I experiment a lot with materials. It just so happens that the forms that they take are a bit out of this world. But I guess that's part of the idea. Like I take familiar objects, like mosquito nets, for example, and kind of reapply them on a different scale. In this case, a monumental scale, to kind of commemorate the effectivity and the significant ways in which these tools were used to almost obliterate or like significantly decrease the malaria cases in Palawan. And I was particularly excited that I got to use actual nets that were used that actually possibly saved lives. You know, these medicated nets. When I got them, they were still torn, they were like holes. They were actually really, it was like they came from battle. And it was kind of an honor to actually work with these and to give them a proper stage. You know, you don't realize the amount of work it took to install pipes just to hang a few columbos, you know? But it was, for me, it was like a worthy effort.
Definitely a conversation starter. Very important conversations. Whenever we talk about malaria, it's always with a sense of fear. But you know what they say? We fear because we do not know. At least not everything. So at this point, I want to talk about the cure, some of the vaccines that are in the pipeline. And I want to talk about a Chinese lady called Tu Youyou. Tu Youyou is actually from mainland China. She won the 2015 Nobel Prize for Medicine for her work on Chinese traditional medicine using herbs to cure malaria. She actually used woodworm, sweet woodworm, extracted a substance called artemisinin, which inhibits the malaria parasite. So here it was, I googled woodworm, and guess what? What was Google's top suggestion? Palawan. It turns out, and sir, I need you to confirm this, that woodworm is talimok. Tamilok in Palawan, a very famous appetizer in Palawan and Aklan. The cure apparently is in your backyard. Sir, are we aware of this?
Surprised. It's the first time I heard about it. But Tamilok has medicinal value.
At least that's what the Nobel Prize winner says. But maybe we can collaborate on something with that because it's very abundant in your place. Ma'am Marvy, I want to ask, is it true that we can detect malaria using smartphones and artificial intelligence?
We tried.
Tell us about this.
Well, we wanted to make sure that we use all of the technologies that are available. And we know that because it's such a far-flung area, we are going into the boondocks and the like. We wanted to veer away from using microscopes because it's very hard to carry them. And so in one of our study moments, we wanted to make a phone that will become the microscope of the volunteers. We went into a snag though because the efficiency of the rapid diagnostic test, we have a volunteer here who came out so quickly, and the efficiency and the sensitivity of the rapid diagnostic test is so high that it was so easy to use rather than bringing in a microscope. So yes, we were looking into it, but that's a thing of the past now.
So what's the thing of the future now? What innovations are you looking at? Innovative solutions?
Okay, the challenges that we have, we are now in the last 3 provinces. We have Sultan Kudarat with 2 cases. We have Mindoro Occidental with 4 cases. And we have Palawan with over 5,000 cases. It's far from the 78,000, but it's still the biggest. And our concern is that we are really now into the hinterlands. This is a literal walk to about 3 hours going up the mountains. And our volunteers and project officers are there most of the time. And so what is it that we lack? I think there is a gap because people do not sleep under the nets at 6 o'clock in the evening. So people actually sleep under the nets at about 9 o'clock. So the biting time is from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock to 6. So there's that gap. And as I said, and so we also tell people to wear long sleeves and but how do you tell that to an indigenous person who are in their G-strings, who are very wearing anything, right? And so our innovation that's upcoming is to give them the DIT tanks. We're producing the DIT tanks for the arms and for the anklets so that we can protect them from the bite of the mosquito. Hopefully, it's in an operational research mode. And then we are also looking at other chemicals for the IRS, indoor residual spraying, that might be used so that it can supplement and complement the use of the mosquito net.
Yes, Dr. Gallery?
Just one addition, this is not in the pipeline, I think we have already started, that using the giant mosquito nets, you forget, that is a success story in people gathering areas in the southern Palawan, especially in Rizal municipality. So I have seen it, and where the people gather because they don't go to sleep at 6 p.m., right? So this is one of the ways, a huge, like this room size.
Dr. Gallery, just to be clear, there is no vaccine yet for malaria. I know there's one being tested by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation worked on a certain vaccine. It's called TRS-S, but it's only being tested in I think 3 African countries. What's the latest on that, and how soon will that be available to countries like the Philippines?
Yes, 2 things I want to tell about because I involved in this, the vaccine. This vaccine works only for falciparum. Because I told you that there are 4 human parasites, so it works only for 1. This vaccine is exclusively for African countries because this species is more prevalent in Africa and more children are dying from malaria. So when you produce a vaccine, the 4 stages you have to pass, starting from production. So the last stage is social marketing and the final testing. So it has been done in 3 countries, Kenya, DRC Congo and Nigeria as a pilot testing. And this is for only children, 5 to 16 years old. However, as of now, the result shows that this is not give you 100% protection, but it prevent the deaths. So there's two different things. You still can get malaria because we are aiming to reduce deaths in Africa. So this is just the thing. So if somebody asks from this forum, is this vaccine, can we bring it here? I will say no. First of all, as Marvi said, it is just 5,000 cases in southern Palawan in 3 municipalities, right? And this is the remarkable success story in the Philippines. You have reported only 2 deaths for last year. So
And one of them
is
is
imported case.
Imported case.
Imported case. The Filipino who came from abroad and got the disease. So why you want the vaccine? You don't. There's no indication here, right? And falciparum, although it's higher percentage prevalence, but clearly I don't see a room for vaccine introduction to this country.
So when someone contracts malaria, the medicines that we have here would address the symptoms,
Yes.
not malaria itself.
No, it will remove the
The
parasite.
parasite.
If you use the medicine properly and you finish the entire dose,
Mhm.
you will actually remove the parasite from the body.
I see. And Vice Gov, for the indigenous peoples of Palawan, do you still encounter some of them who refuse to see the doctor for malaria, who believe in albularyo to cure this? Some even think this is a curse for their families.
Not sure, but I think it's not so much a refusal to see the doctor as the lack of access, total lack of access. Many of our indigenous peoples are in fact not accounted for in the censuses. So one of the initiatives of the governor recently was to go out of the way, go up the mountains and really make a head count of these indigenous peoples.
Leroy, I want to ask you now, do you plan to use this art, your gift for art, in other advocacies? And perhaps if we ask you to design an installation for AIDS, what or how would that installation look like? I'm going to give you a few minutes. Hold your thought. We'll get back to you. We're now going to the next round of questions, and this is for everybody. I guess I want to know, can you imagine a world without mosquitoes? Should we even imagine that world? Or do we risk destroying the ecological balance? Because if you look at the list of the mosquito-borne diseases, it's a long list. Dengue, malaria, Zika, chikungunya, and the list goes on. So they're really public enemy number 1 as well. But I'm sure in the circle of life, they serve some purpose. So can you imagine a world, should the goal be a world without mosquitoes? Or is that dangerous ground for all of us? Anyone can answer this question.
Maybe I will go because this is my 20, I won't tell you my age, but this is my 25 years of doing malaria, all mosquito-borne diseases. No, I won't imagine a world without mosquitoes. We need mosquitoes, as you said, to keep the ecology balance. And we are not eliminating mosquitoes in the world also, not even malaria mosquitoes. Right? So that is the for sure. But then maybe you have seen the word elimination of malaria. Then you will find what is that. So we are planning to eliminate the parasites in the patient's body. Because suppose this room, we are all free of parasites, and I'm going to discharge malaria mosquitoes here, right? So what? Maybe a little bit painful, the bite, but that mosquito won't have anything because we are all free of parasites. And then I will discharge the same mosquito out, they are not going to transmit because no parasite. So that is the elimination.
Anyone else would like to take that question?
I think one of the visible lens of our time is biodiversity. And I think there's a consensus globally from all of us here also that we don't want any creature to become extinct. And that being the case, I think the approach should be more towards along the line of protecting humans, immunizing them, and maybe even developing cures, rather than eliminating the carrier, the creature that carries the parasite, or even the parasite itself might be of some use.
Okay, entomology or the study of the insect, the mosquitoes, is part of the component of the malaria program. And we actually pick up and get mosquitoes so that we can understand their behavior and the like. But I will second the discussion of Gauri in the fact that if the people are clean of the parasite, then there is nothing that the mosquitoes can transmit. And so our aim is to make sure that everybody is rid of all of the parasite. And so our biggest concern is that our indigenous people, our brothers, are actually carriers of the mosquitoes. They have, they were able to get by even if they are parasite infected. And so they walk around and not having the symptoms, and so the mosquitoes bite them. And so we're after them. We're looking at the last man standing with the with the malaria parasite. And if we can clean that, and I can be certain that the Philippines will be malaria.
Leroy?
Regarding
Mosquito-free world?
the other question, I mean, I guess for me, it makes its basic sense to believe that you can't eliminate any one species. I'm sure they serve a purpose in the scheme of things. I'm sure we're the parasite for some of these species. So
For some other creature
we've been the cause of its
We are the parasite, exactly.
for a lot of species. So
Vice Governor, I wanted to ask you, we can't eliminate mosquitoes from the world, but definitely we can eliminate malaria. Earlier in your speech, you read the speech from the governor, and he said Palawan is almost malaria-free. What else do you need in the final leg, in the final stretch, before you hit that finish line, for you to make it to the finish line?
Yes, we hope that PSFI and Luzon plus Malaria will continue its work and will reach the 100% 2030 deadline for making Palawan malaria free totally. And towards that end, I'd like to express also our appreciation. But beyond even the issue of malaria, this experience between PSFI and the regional government, Luzon plus Malaria, for us it's also a evidence of sorts of the possibility of involving everyone in the community, not just government, not just representatives of the private sector, but everyone concerned is part of this. But we give special thanks to PSFI and Luzon plus Malaria program.
I wanted to ask this to Ma'am Marvy and Doc Gallery. What are the chances of backsliding on this goal? Because last year we saw the reemergence of polio, which was extinct for 19 years. Here it is again. So what are the chances?
There is actually a big threat because we do a lot of exporting of our labor. And then they come home and they go to malarious areas, and then they come home and are not aware that they carry the parasite. And so the government now has a very big program on tracking and also engaging the agencies involved in the OFWs to ensure that they are aware of the disease, and so that they come home, they don't bring the disease back to their loved ones and to the country. Reintroduction is always a possibility, and so the surveillance system of the governments are very important. All of the local government units are enjoined to look at their surveillance, not just for malaria, but for all of the diseases. Because anything that you've already brought down, if you just let it go and without any surveillance, then it will surely come back as the polio. And so this is something that we learned, the resurgence of polio is an awakening for all of us at the malaria program. And so we are bringing up the surveillance quite higher to ensure that this does not happen.
Doc Gowrie?
Oh, yes, I always tell this. We are sitting on a time bomb. So if you relax your control activities, it will come up. I can give you 2 examples from the world. Almost near eliminated, but due to many reasons, it has come up. Starting from Venezuela, Argentina, Mauritius, Algeria, Zanzibar, and my own country. 1968, it eliminated malaria, but within 2 years, it came up with 400,000 cases. So this is the warning. 78 provinces reporting zero malaria in this country. So the provincial government, they are enjoying this, no malaria. But as Marvis said, we need to be very vigilant. Surveillance should be enhanced. 10 million Filipinos are working abroad. Majority are in African countries. In Africa, there are a lot of malaria cases. And most of the Filipinos, they pass in Syria. They land here, all major cities. So that is the government, and they are doing a lot to enhance the surveillance.
Before we go to Q&A, just want to go back to Leroy. Your installation for AIDS, because we heard earlier that the next project of Pilipinas Shaw Foundation will be to tackle AIDS. How would an installation about AIDS look like?
I actually have done work for an NGO advocating for education about HIV/AIDS. It was a traveling theater show, and I did an inflatable or like a compressible set made out of fabric too, actually, spandex, which resembled the virus. So, and I think that's an effective way to travel art and educate people at the same time, because listening from these experts, education and information, access to information is the best defense to these diseases. And Kulambo is just merely a tool, but how it's used and how it's implemented, how it's disseminated is really the key. So my answer would be a traveling inflatable installation set that teaches in theater form these insights about these diseases.
Sounds exciting. So now we open the floor to questions.